So as promised, I figured I would try to do one of these makeup tutorials. I've never actually done this before. I mean, I've done a ton of makeup, of course, but I've never actually recorded myself doing it in this way. Um, Before I start, I just want to thank all the artists and creative people that are on Facebook right now and are doing similar kind of stuff. That's sort of why I'm inspired to do this. I figured it would be something kind of fun that if you know me and have seen some of my makeup, would be cool for you to see how I do certain things. Some of my techniques are a little unconventional, and I think that's what will make the videos a little interesting. So I'm gonna go through each thing step by step, but I'm not gonna bore you through the entire process. I'm gonna skip around. And at the end, I'll be Zombie Enzo. First off, what I like to do is I tend to wear a tank top or something like that. That way I can get down here if I need to put makeup on there. So that's why I'm in this in this tank top. So let's start. First step are the contact lenses. Okay, I now have the contacts in. These are pretty standard whiteout contacts. They're standard size, real easy to wear, real easy to put on. And over the years, they've gotten more and more comfortable. So I could wear these all day and not even feel them. When you first use them, you feel like your vision's a little blurry, but it's really just the white edges going up against your pupil. But they're super standard. In later tutorials, I'm going to show you some sclera contacts, which are super dramatic, but are very painful to wear for long periods of time. So I'm going to start with this, and this works pretty well for a zombie look. For those of you who are getting serious about makeup, I would recommend starting your contact lens collection. You're going to use it a lot, and as you can see, even now, it changes my face quite a bit and adds a lot of drama. So I usually put these on first before I do any makeup. That way, I don't want my contacts to be dirty while I'm out and having a good time. I don't want to be bothered by any sort of pain from the contact lenses. This next step I like to call the prosthetic pass, or if you're going to do anything with latex, if you're going to do any scarring or hanging skin, which we're going to do, you do it now where there's no makeup on and everything can kind of stick. I'm going to be using liquid latex for this stuff. Some other unconventional things that I use. I really like to use coffee filters for hanging skin and for helping me to cover my facial hair and other things I'm going to do. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some gashes to kind of tell a story of how I became a zombie. You know, maybe a zombie tugged at my eye and cut my eye and maybe got some of my jaw, exposed some of my teeth. So that's what we're going to do with these. And we're going to cut these, just going to tear them and create hanging skin. Another thing I like to use, which is super unconventional, is pumpkin seed shells. And one of the reasons I do this sort of stuff is one, I do a lot of makeup stuff all the time. So I want to kind of manage my costs because I do this a lot. And two, some of my biggest influences were early makeup artists, you know, guys like Lon Chaney Sr. He was an actor and a makeup artist. He would do his own makeup, Phantom of the Opera, you know, London After Midnight. He was really well known and famous. He would do things like, you know, use piano wire to bring up his jaw or his teeth. And I really am inspired by that sort of ingenuity. So I'm always looking to do weird things like that and try new things. A lot of my designs don't have to be the same every time. So I'm not limited by that. And to be honest with you, I would find that kind of boring. So whenever I do a zombie, I try and do something a little different with it to kind of challenge myself and to keep things interesting. So to start, I'm going to start cutting this, tearing this, in a very, very haphazard sort of way. I want it to look rough. I want it to not be perfect. Kind of tear these up to create the hanging skin effect. Stuff like this. Like this would end up being, somewhere like here, exposing the jaw and exposing the teeth. So kind of cut that stuff up and get a few good looking pieces that have a good kind of stripped skin effect to them. Okay, so here's a good piece to cover this part of my mustache, which I'm going to do right now. When I do things with latex, I like to put it on glass or something very non-porous, so I can just peel it off after I'm done, and it makes it super easy. Another thing I like to use are Q-tips with it, because if you try to use any brush with it, say goodbye to that brush. So what I'm going to do is put it around my mustache, like that. And try not to get it on top. And again, I put cream there as well. And then I just do this. It's mainly a flap to protect half of my mustache. We're going to be putting the pumpkin seed shells on top of this directly. Again, the surface of a zombie's inner mouth doesn't have to be perfect. Perfection is boring, at least for a zombie. Next up are the pumpkin seeds. So what I usually do, take the pumpkin seed shell and trying to find some good size ones. And then I cut them to look more like teeth. So something like this. And I put latex on the back of them. And then I start sticking them in place. Believe it or not, this does not have to be perfect. Zombie chews on stuff, chews on people, chews on bone. So the teeth start to get kind of nasty, which is what you want. Not too perfect. I usually leave that tip because it reminds me of how the shape of human teeth are. A little bit of latex. And stick it right next to the other. Okay, so you can kind of see I have a row of teeth here. Pretty simple. Once you're done doing that, you might want to put a little latex up on top. And that hides the top edge, makes sure that it's secure. And once this is dry, it's not going to come off unless you're, being a maniac and just tugging at your face and stuff. it actually holds really, really well. It's already starting to hold well. Okay, next we're gonna do this area here. In a similar way, the good thing is I don't need to put anything on top of any facial hair. I'm just gonna avoid this area and I should be okay. That way it looks like the slash went across and exposed both sides. Just kind of interesting. You know, you can do the entire row if you want. You could do more here and, you know, make the whole side of the face gone. It's kind of up to you what you want to do. I'm going to do some on this side. Put the latex on. Again, I don't need to put paper on this side because, you know, there isn't facial hair there. And again, it holds pretty well. That's another thing I like about the pumpkin seeds is that they're extremely light and they're porous. So when we do the fake blood pass, which is one of my favorite passes because it sets everything off, you'll see what I'm talking about. It just works. Okay, so here's the bottom part. And I also started to put latex here where I'm going to add the hanging skin. So something like this along there. All you have to do is take latex and just do that. An important thing I think about a lot is motion. So I try to create the illusion of motion in the slash, kind of visualize where the slash would travel. That's going to inform a lot of things when I start doing the makeup. You know, the later details, the splatter, that sort of thing. And this will all kind of make sense once it's all together. Okay, now I'm done with the big slash across my mouth. It doesn't look like much right now because there's no makeup on it at all. What I'm gonna do is on the top part, I'm gonna kind of show more scratching. And one of the things I like to do is with latex, I like to kind of accentuate that with that surface difference. But I don't necessarily have to put hanging skin on it. The way it reacts to the makeup makes it stand out, and it almost looks like its own kind of small scar. You'll see when I'm done. So I'll do this sort of thing. I don't have to put that much, enough to get the point across. This stuff's gonna start turning invisible after a while, so you won't even see it. But once the makeup's on, you'll get a hint of it, and it just adds a nice little detail. Just like that. So now I'm done with the prosthetic pass. I've added everything I wanted to add, everything that's going to pop out. And at this point, you can either get a blow dryer and blow dry it if you're on a time crunch, or you can just sit and wait for it to dry. It doesn't take that long to dry. Most of this is dry already, actually, but I would wait for it to fully dry. Okay, all the makeup is dry now, all the latex. You can barely see the ones up there. All this is dry. Now we start doing the actual makeup work. The first thing I use as sort of a catalyst for everything else is a really good matte cover up. And this is the one my wife has provided, which is perfect. I love it. And this is what she uses day to day. For zombie, you want to blend colors. You don't want everything to be super green. You want to have shades of it all. You want to bring out the features. And this is perfect for, it's kind of a foundation for all the color work you're going to do. So first step is to cover everything you've done with this. So I'm going to start doing that now. Okay, so here is all my face covered with the cover-up, including the paper that I've placed, as well as the teeth. It all blends it together really, really nicely, if you notice. From here, this is kind of the foundation of everything. And as you can see too, I've put a little bit in my hair, a little on my goatee. It sort of makes the hair and eyebrows and everything kind of dirty. So again, we don't want to be sterile with this design. It's a zombie. I did that with this, with the foundation and a little triangle sponge. Once you're done with that, you can see it's blending pretty well. We move on to contouring. And this is what I call skeletal contouring. Since this is a dead look, I'm going to bring out certain parts of my skeleton, my cheekbones, these lines here, my nose. Oh, my cat's going crazy, and other things. So I'll start that now. I use a brush like this to do that, and I'll just quickly do a little bit of it and then do the rest of it. We're going to blend all this in. So again, you don't have to be perfect, but certain things you want to bring out. And ladies, this is very similar to facial contouring, similar kind of principles. Just leaning more towards the skeletal. You might want to bring out the jawline a little bit. Definitely the cheekbone. Maybe a little on the teeth as well. Everyone's skeleton is slightly different, so you just got to go with what your bone structure is like. I've always said I have gargoyle features, which I'm not insulting myself. I think it's awesome. Works really well for vampires and zombies. So now I've got all the lines I need for the contouring on the face. One of the things I like to do is the neck as well. Even the clavicle bone. And if you're wearing your shirt open, which I do sometimes when I'm doing zombies and vampires, I'll even do like the rib cage as well. For this, I probably just need a little bit of it showing since you can't see the rest. And these are essentially highlights, kind of bone highlights that we're going to blend in with everything else. Okay, so I'm done with all the contouring lines. I forgot I didn't tell you what I'm using. I'm using a Clown White makeup. You can get this on Amazon. There's multiple brands. My favorite is Ben and I. This one's pretty good. Miro as well. Miron. I think Ben I is a little bit more professional grade. This one's actually a little thinner, so it works really well for the zombie thing. You can get something like this for 20 bucks, and this will last you like 10 years. It's super thick and does the job. Whenever you need to add opaque white elements to something, it's not just for clown stuff, obviously. And then once you have all the lines in, like this, then you start blending it with the foundation, with one of these triangle sponges. You want to dab. You don't want to. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people do white makeup, and it looks like they put it on with a paintbrush, and you see the streaks. If you don't want streaks, you dab. It takes a long time, annoyingly, but you get this almost airbrushed sort of effect. So you do it this way. And what you're trying to do is just blend it with the foundation. Like that. Okay, so now I've blended all the white in. Pretty simple. Again, dab it, get everything kind of blending. This is the highlight phase and the contouring phase. So now we want to do the opposite. We want to do dark. We want to do the dark stuff and do a similar technique. You know, the areas where you want to be recessed, like the sockets of the eyes, the cheekbones, areas in the neck, you do the similar thing. You do lines. I'm going to use some grease paint, which is what Clown White it was as well. I'm going to kind of blend it a little bit with blue and green. I want to look a little bruised. I want to have a bruised sort of look. The reason I'm picking that, as opposed to kind of, you know, Walking Dead, so I like to add a little bit of color to things. It just makes things pop a lot more. So the first thing I would do is probably around the eyes. You know, try to kind of show where the eyes sink. And again, this is a foundational pass as well. We're going to do a lot more beyond this. But you can kind of see where it's headed right off. Sort of worried that the lighting is blowing out the subtlety of the design. But yeah, that's the light. Maybe at the end I'll show you what it looks like in less dramatic lighting. This we're going to blend. Just kind of think about where your bone structure is. I've seen photographs of dead stuff, and sometimes the protruding skin starts to rot and get dark. So I would do something similar here with the nose. The lips. Big dramatic cheekbone stuff. Temple. Sort of see where it's headed. Okay, all the dark contour lines are in place. And from here, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to blend it all. You don't even need to get a new sponge. You can use the one that you used to put the foundation on. And it'll all blend in and it'll all be fine. So again, you dab it like that. And you'll start getting a nice blend between all the values. Focus on the dark elements. Just retrace them. And this will give you a really nice blend. Again, don't be perfect. A perfect zombie is a boring one. Okay, so now the darker elements are blended throughout. You can kind of see it. One of the things I really love to use are eyeshadows. So here's an eyeshadow palette that I'm going to use to add a bit more color, a bit more bruising, a bit more subtlety to the overall look. It's super simple. In this case, I would want to use some purple, you know, like when you get a really bad bruise. Some purple and a little bit of blue to just add a bit more subtlety and color to the overall design. Real simple. You can kind of see how it's going, right? Again, following the actual bone structure of my face. Every design I do, I try and add a bit of beauty to it, a bit of artistry to it, not just dirty and messy, but almost illustrated. See how you get that? It almost looks like it's been airbrushed. And since we already have the contouring foundation, you know, this just makes it better and better. And what I love about these eyeshadow palettes is that they're extremely inexpensive. And being an artist that I am, I love color. I love mixing and blending color. I like coloring outside the lines. And this gives it more of a palette approach that I'm very comfortable with. So you can kind of see where this is headed. Again, Perfect Zombie is a boring one. So don't be too precious. Don't be too tight with your movements. And it'll work out. See that? Pretty easy. The grease paint, the foundation, and the eyeshadow, they all work so well together because the eyeshadow, it sort of sets everything. So you don't get smearing because it's kind of a powder. So it just works. It just, you know, works together. Sometimes when I go out, people go, "Oh my God, you must have an airbrush." Nope, I have this. And you know what? I've used airbrushes before and they speed up the process, but I love doing this, so I really don't want the process sped up. And I want to be able to shoot from the hip color-wise, not have to empty something out and then put something in. Here I can use it like a palette, and I feel like I get something that is a little bit more organic and kind of unbridled, and that's what I want. Okay, now everything is blended. We're done with the eyeshadow pass. Now we're gonna just start doing the blood pass. I usually start with the grease paint, like a red grease paint, and I start thinking about where I want there to be blood. I think you guys remember that I had slashes, and you can't see it from where you are, but I know where they are because I can still see the latex. And then like around the teeth, the exposed skin, I'll do a bit of this grease paint in there. But honestly, it's not going to do all of it. I've got fake blood that I'm going to use that looks extremely realistic, and that really helps sell the final look. This is more of a pass for coverage, to get kind of the skin flaps to look right, and to outline the slashes. Okay, so I'm done with the grease paint pass of the red. This is not red enough. This is not bloody enough. I'm just using it to create the fleshy parts. But I'm going to use this awesome fake blood as the final pass. But before I do that, I want to set the makeup. So one of the things I do is I use Johnson's baby powder. With makeup, they'll sell you this other setting powder, but I've found that baby powder works just as well. And then there's certain baby powders that smell really, really good. So you look like this disgusting zombie and you smell amazing. So that's why I like to use this stuff. So here's my technique for this. And this is mainly for the zombie. I just want it to be lightly set before I put the blood, the red blood, or the fake blood. And I just do this. This puts a thin coat over the entire design. Smells great, and it doesn't fade the overall design. And again, the eyeshadow is a powder, so it's already set for the most part, and it'll stay in place and it won't smear. If someone comes up to you and gives you a French kiss, then you're in trouble. But for the most part, it won't smear. It's pretty good with that technique. Okay, the final touch is the blood pass. I like to use this stuff. I got it on Amazon. I think this was about $20. And as you can see, there's a lot in here. My second favorite element is blood spray. The two go on very, very differently. This is more for, trickles of blood. This is more like spray, spatter, that sort of thing. And I think a combination of the two can make something like this take away a bit of its sterility and have it, be a little bit more realistic and dynamic looking. So like in the case of the spatter, I would think when this happened to me as a zombie, there was a bit of spray there. So I would spray it near that area. And here, you can kind of see what it's doing already. What I really like about this is that it takes away the sterility of uniformly placing the makeup on. It adds character to it. It allows for awesome little idiosyncrasies that the spray does. So I probably put a little here as well. I always like to look startling, but I don't like to look too messy. I want people to read the design. I want people to kind of get the full impact of this design, but I also want to scare them because I want to look like an authentic zombie. So with this guy, I'll either use a brush or a sponge, and I'll think about, well, where would this blood be? Where would a big trickle end up? So if I look at my design, I think, well, they'd probably be around the teeth, around here. So you can see this is extremely dramatic. And what I like to do is just let it do its thing, let gravity take its course. Because 9 times out of 10, it will not let you down. So be the bloodiest place. I always like putting some in the ear too, because it tends to trickle down, and that's really disturbing. Or along here, along where the gash was. And again, this stuff is going to trickle down. It's going to look really dramatic and creepy. What is more disturbing than a bleeding eye? I have no idea. And this stuff looks amazing when it's fresh. And it also looks good when it's dry. It cakes. And it even browns a little bit. So it looks really realistic. And because it's shiny, it's sort of three-dimensional. Because the rest of me is kind of matte. So it kind of pops. I don't know if you can see that in the video. I'll do this sort of thing. Squeeze. Squeeze the sponge so it trickles and let blood do what it does. And then you might even put little spatters of it where it makes sense. Also, from a color theory standpoint, these teals and purples look really good with this red. It's kind of bright blood red. And that's all by design. I like for it to look illustrated. Realistic, but illustrated. And I always try and keep a bit of the beauty of it, if that makes any sense. Now, if you saw me close up and you looked at this, you would never think it was paper. With the cover up, it looks fleshy and pretty believable. And the design is done. I added final touches of blood and spatter. And as you can see, it's pretty much completed. There are a lot of steps, but once you get used to doing them, they're not really that tricky, and there's a lot of room for error. And that's what I love about zombie makeup. It's just pure fun to do it. I'm gonna post some pictures of close-up of this so that way you can kind of see that it actually holds up really well up close as well. I think my lighting might be too bright for you to see all the details, but again, thanks for watching, and hang in there, you guys. I'm really enjoying your videos as well. Together we can get through this. Be good to each other. Please don't hoard toilet paper or makeup, because I need it to get through this. And I hope you enjoyed it.